The NFL and the future of Aaron Rodgers is now up in the air. The NFL's transaction wire says he was officially released by the Jets Thursday morning. If Rodgers decides to continue his career, he may have several potential landing sites. Let's talk about it with NFL insider Dan Graziano. Dan, what more can you tell us about where things stand with Aaron Rodgers?
Jay, the Giants and the Steelers have both expressed interest in Aaron Rodgers and are waiting to hear which one of them he would like to play for. There's a wild card in the mix, which is the Minnesota Vikings, who have at least discussed internally the possibility of adding Rodgers. And it's hard to say exactly where that stands, but Rodgers, I think, if that's a possibility, would like to leave it open. So that could be part of the holdup in terms of the Giants and the Steelers. But as of now, the Giants and the Steelers continue to wait and hope that Aaron Rodgers decides that he wants to play for them. Russell Wilson, who played for the Steelers last year, is not waiting around. He visited the Cleveland Browns yesterday. He's going to visit the New York Giants today. It's possible that the Steelers or the Giants could pivot to Russell Wilson if Aaron Rodgers does not select them. But as of now, Russell Wilson wants to see what his options are, so he's making a little bit of a tour. And then another wild card in all of this is Kirk Cousins, who's still under contract with the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons have told him and potentially interested teams that they do not plan to release him, that they like the idea of having him on the team, even as Michael Penix Jr.'s backup this year. There's some skepticism around the league about how far the Falcons are willing to take this. But as of now, as the quarterback musical chairs are filling up, Cousins is still a Falcon, and the Falcons are still insisting that he will be. Could he shake loose? Could somebody make a trade offer that gets him out of Atlanta? Entirely possible, but as of right now, he appears to be stuck.
Yeah.
Viral moment. So where are we with the Aaron Rodgers of it all? I mean,
there's no viral moment to be had on this. We're just waiting. Like the Get Up was asking me, like, what's the update? It's like, there's no update. The Giants and the Steelers are still waiting. He's still sort of playing footsie with Minnesota on some level, hoping that works out. And yeah, I think it's on his timetable. And I don't think he minds that we're talking about him. I don't.
Dan,
I don't.
Do you think retirement is on the table for him, or do you think he wants to play?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Again, I can't get into that head. So, like, my sense of it is, and the sense of it around the league is that he wants to play.
Okay.
Could theoretically, like, if his options sort of dry up and he's confronting the idea of playing for mediocre or bad teams, could that change? Sure. But it sounds like most people seem to believe he wants to play.
Weird question, but here we go. Does he want his options to dry up? Does he want a reason he has to go to the Giants?
If I had known you guys were going to ask me to parse the thinking of Aaron Rodgers, like I might have said, I don't feel up to it today, dude.
All right, let's move on.
No, we can't move on.
I don't know what he's thinking. Only he does.
Okay, so you got to help us out with the New York Giants and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I can try on that.
Yeah, because the Pittsburgh Steelers, they finally got a quarterback under contract in Mason Rudolph yesterday. But how long are both of those organizations content in letting this pursuit of Aaron Rodgers play out?
What choice do they have? I mean, like, they're going to pivot to if Aaron is your top choice and your second choice is Russell Wilson, are you that worried that someone else is going to sign Russell Wilson? Like, these teams are sifting between plans D, E, and F at this point. Like, it's not. I think if Aaron Rodgers is far and away your top choice, and knowing sort of how mercurial a personality he is, I think you have to give him the space to make this decision, or else he might just tell you to pound sand.
And that's fair, but there is a very real scenario where Aaron Rodgers isn't a quarterback for either the Giants or the Steelers.
Sure.
And in that instance, Russell Wilson can only sign with one of those teams.
Correct.
So somebody would be left without a quarterback. I guess that's the question that I'm asking you. How much of an appetite do those franchises have to be that team that doesn't have one of those two quarterbacks?
I mean, look, I think it would be a higher level of desperation if we're talking about better players. Like Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson at this stage in their career are not like franchise saving. I mean, like, if Patrick Mahomes was deciding, they'd wait months, right?
For sure.
But I mean, I don't think they're concerned. I don't think there's enough room between, choice one, choice two, choice three at this point. Like, I think the Steelers and the Giants, and unless J.J. McCarthy's really good, the Vikings, these teams are in some level of trouble at the quarterback position because they have missed out on a lot of their top choices.
Dan, what's the latest you can share with us about what's going on with the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson?
He's still out there, like, trying to find a team that is willing to give him the contract he wants and willing to give the Bengals what they want for a trade. At this point, my understanding is the Bengals' demands have remained high, like first-round pick level high. This is the kind of thing that could stretch all the way to the draft and see how far the Bengals are willing to take it. I think there's some hope in the Bengals building that at some point Trey Hendrickson will come back to them, having not found what he's looking for externally, and talk to them again about the deal they're willing to do with him. But as of now, that there doesn't seem to be a lot of movement on that.
Graz, I know the Bengals said they want to prioritize signing Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They've got the franchise tag on Higgins. He's not happy about it. Are teams around the NFL still inquiring about T. Higgins' availability?
Yeah, but it's been like 3 years now that teams have been inquiring about T. Higgins' availability and just being shut down by the Bengals. So at this point, I think teams are under the assumption that either he'll play on the tag, he'll sit out, or they'll do a deal with him at some point. Look, July 15th is the deadline to do a long-term deal with the franchise-tagged player. So as it gets closer to that, you might see a little more movement on that front in terms of Bengals trying to sign him, maybe him becoming available in trade, like to the extent that, say, Trey Hendrickson is at the moment. But as of right now, this week has been about, free agency, and you get to a point where we're not going to get a deal done with T. Higgins in the next couple days. We're not going to get a deal done with Jamar Chase in the next couple days. We got to focus on re-signing B.J. Hill, right? Like, because that has to happen Monday, or else it's not going to happen. So I think that you get through this week and you sort of recalibrate where all those things stand.
We're talking with Dan Graziano, ESPN senior NFL reporter here on Unsportsmanlike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Moments before you joined us, Adam Schefter reported that Cooper Kupp, Cowboys sleeper team. We've also heard the Seahawks as well. That a decision could be made as early as today. What are you hearing about all of this?
I think he's had several teams interested. I think the Cowboys have certainly played around with the idea at various levels throughout the offseason. There have been times where I've heard he was a serious consideration there. There have been times where I've heard he's not. And so, where this stands right now, Adam's reporting it this morning, so I have to believe that at least their attention is turned back in that direction somewhat. But he has had several teams interested. There's a lot of receiver-needy teams still out there. He'd really fit what the Cowboys need. They're looking for a number 2 receiver behind C.D. Lamb right now, and this is a veteran option who probably at this point in his career, as great as he's been, is probably best suited as a number 2 option behind a superstar like C.D. Lamb. So I think he makes a lot of sense for the Cowboys, but with the Cowboys and free agency, it's always about the price. If someone's willing to pay more, then I would imagine that's where he'd go.
Graz, everyone assumed with the Cowboys restructuring Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb last week that was setting the stage for them to start negotiations with Micah Parsons a lot earlier than those other players that they've recently signed that they consider core guys. I'm curious to know where things stand with Micah Parsons and the Cowboys being able to work out something long-term.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what everyone assumed, then it confirms my suspicion that no one ever listens to what I say. Because, Micah Parsons is not the contract extension with Micah Parsons will reduce his salary cap number for 2025. Right now, it's a high.
It's 24, yeah.
24 on the 5th-year option. If they do a contract with him, he'll get a minimum salary this year and a signing bonus, and the number will go down. So restructuring Dak and CD was not in an effort to find cap space for Micah. That was always going to happen. Teams structure their contracts differently. Like the Eagles will sign a guy to a long-term contract and they'll put these option bonuses in so every year there's an option bonus and you can treat it as a signing bonus. So like Jalen Hurts' contract has void years through like 2032, right? Because you can just keep building in these options. And the Cowboys do it a little differently. They put the void years in, but they have the big number in the second year. So it's almost an automatic restructure. They have the right without the player's agreement to restructure the deal. So it functions the same way as what the Eagles do. They just do it differently. So Dak and CD were always going to get restructured this year. That was always part of the plan for cap space. The question with Dallas, of course, is how do they use that cap space? They really don't sign outside free agents. They re-signed Oso Odigizua, one of their defensive linemen. That was sort of their big spend so far in free agency. We'll see what else they do. They also like to make trades this time of year.
Dan, a team that we've talked about a lot this week is the San Francisco 49ers, and there's been some discussion about Christian McCaffrey and his future there. Do you think that that's something the 49ers would realistically entertain, moving on from CMC?
I think if they were to do that, being a smart front office, they would wait because your value on McCaffrey right now is probably pretty low as he's coming off another injury. So if you get into the season and he's playing well and you're not in contention, does he become interesting to somebody at the trade deadline? Potentially. But I think right now to ship him off just for the sake of whatever they're doing, rebuild whatever it is. I don't think that's one of their considerations. I think they're adjusting a little bit of their philosophy in terms of their cash spending right now. I don't think they're in a mode, maybe I'll be proven wrong, I don't think they're in a mode where they're just dumping good players and resetting for picks, because they have plenty of picks already.
Graz, great stuff as always. You'll see Dan Graziano, 8 a.m. Eastern on Get Up, read him ESPN.com. We always appreciate his time. Coming up, we're going to dive into this later.
Recently, the Houston Texans made a move that has sparked divided opinions among experts. Through a trade with the Minnesota Vikings, they acquired offensive guard Ed Ingram, a former second-round pick, in a deal that involves a future sixth-round pick. Many are wondering whether this is a step toward improving their offensive line or an unnecessary risk. In this video, we break down everything you need to know about this trade and its implications for the Texans. Before diving into the details of the trade, it's important to mention that the Houston Texans' offensive line has been a critical point during the last season. Pass protection, especially on the interior, was one of the team's main concerns in 2024. With this in mind, the move for Ed Ingram can be seen as a direct response to the urgent need to strengthen that area. The Texans, under the direction of General Manager Nick Caserio, are looking for solutions that are not only effective but also economically viable. The trade for Ed Ingram presents itself as an economical move for the Texans, as they only give up a sixth-round pick in 2026. At 26 years old, Ingram has the potential to be a significant improvement for the offensive line, but his performance in Minnesota raised some doubts. After starting in his early games, he ended up on the bench last season. Despite that, the Texans believe he can be a low-cost option with a high ceiling of potential. However, the fact that Houston is assuming the most expensive year of his contract, with a $3.2 million salary, adds a level of uncertainty to the deal. What do you think about the Texans' trade for Ed Ingram? Do you believe he will truly improve the offensive line, or will this be a failed investment? Was it a good move for Houston to bet on a player with inconsistent performance? Leave your opinion in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Now, let's talk about what's really causing a stir. This trade with the Vikings isn't the only hot topic for the Houston Texans. There's a lot more at stake, and experts are already debating the potential long-term consequences. Will this be the move that finally puts the Texans in the right direction? Stay with us, because now we'll break down everything you need to know. The trade for Ed Ingram has sparked a big debate among experts, who are not hesitant to question whether this is the change the Texans truly needed. Ingram, who was a second-round pick in the 2021 draft, now joins a team facing serious difficulties in pass protection. The big question is whether Ingram will be able to meet expectations, or if, as many fear, his inconsistency will continue. This move comes at a crucial time for the Texans, who need quick solutions to improve an offensive line that was one of the worst in 2024. This trade could have significant repercussions for the Texans, as the lack of pass protection was one of the biggest problems last season. If Ingram doesn't meet expectations, Houston could be left with an expensive investment that doesn't solve anything. However, if Ingram adapts and improves the interior of the offensive line, this move could be a masterstroke, allowing the quarterback more time to execute key plays and, as a result, improving the team's offensive performance. Do you think Ed Ingram has what it takes to be a starter on the Texans' offensive line? Or do you think Houston should have searched for a more reliable option? How will this move affect pass protection next season? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We want to know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all the news about the Houston Texans and the latest moves in the NFL. Stay connected for more updates on this and other topics. See you in the next video.